Welcome to Digestible Dialogues. I am Sherry Lip, the founder of Happy Gut for Life and the host of this podcast. Today, I am so excited. I have something special to share this week, and that is I am talking with Reid Kimball. So, if you don't know Reid, he is the director of Wanted Crohn's End, a documentary about dealing with Crohn's disease and using diet to help manage it and reduce those symptoms. And now Reid is working on a new project that I know you guys are going to love because it's going to help. It helps all of us that are using special diet, as SCD diet, GAPS diet, autoimmune, paleo diet. So you're going to want to check that out and see what Reid and I have to say about that. So stay tuned and enjoy this week's episode. Welcome, Reid, to Digestible Dialogues. I'm happy to have you here with me today.
Thank you. Yeah, really looking forward to talking with you. I've been a fan of your YouTube channel since I discovered it. I absolutely loved the avocado SCD yogurt recipe.
Oh, thank you.
I tried it for my own, and so thank you for sharing your journey, your story, and all of the information that you have out there.
Yeah, thank you. And so let's talk about a little bit about your journey, because I have been aware of your name and kind of what you've been doing in your documentary for quite some time, but we've never had a chance to talk. So this is gonna be fun. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your getting how you got started on this journey?
Right. So, trying to keep it short and concise, but feel free to ask follow-up questions. I was diagnosed as a teenager when I was 17 with Crohn's disease. That was quite the turning point in my life. I was put on Pentasa at the time. I guess it was mild. So I was hospitalized for the diagnosis, and I'll never forget the date, February 13th, 1997, and put on Pentasa and just kind of thought based on conversations I had with my doctor that, things were not really going to get better. So I didn't really ask for better medications and just stayed on that for years. And so, my journey was that for about 8 years, I really struggled with it. Lots of embarrassing moments, pain. Anybody that has IBD knows what I'm talking about. And then my grandmother heard on the radio an interview with Elaine Gottschall, who wrote the book Breaking the Vicious Cycle. And she told my mom about this interview and the book. And then around that time, I had I, I saw a new gastroenterologist, and for whatever reason, he prescribed me Flagyl, an antibiotic. And over the course of like several nights, I had the most excruciating abdominal pain and very explosive bowel movements. It was terrible. I wrote home to my mom via email, and it happened to be around Christmas time, so I was planning on flying home for Christmas. And she said, I've been reading this book, Breaking the Vicious Cycle. We can start this new diet and see if it helps you when you come home. So I went, so for like the week or so, when, we were communicating via email and phone, I started to eat on the SCD, but not really. And then when I got home, I got the proper introduction, and my mom taught me everything about it. Um, and so that's how I got started on the SCD, and I haven't looked back since. So I started, I think because I was sort of avoiding food, um, when I had that terrible gut pain, and then she told me about the diet and said we can start it in a week. I really wasn't eating much at all.
Mhm.
And I think that kind of gave my gut time to rest. And then I had the SCD yogurt, and within 24 hours, everything was so different in my,
Oh, wow.
my bowel health. And I was hooked. I saw it work right away. But I know my story is not very common. Um, but that was just my story and my experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us have similar stories. I mean, I had my first drug was prednisone, and it made me feel better, but it didn't do anything. I mean, as soon as I tapered off, things got 10 times worse, and I ended up having to have surgery. But after that, they put me on Pentasa, which I took for 1 day, but I was allergic to it, which was kind of, I always kind of think of that as fortunate because that's what he's like, well, you are in surgical remission right now. So just you're on your own. And um, not wanting it to come back, I found SCD Diet just on the message boards were new, and happened to see it in a Crohn's, group forum, somebody mentioning it. So I had to order the book, special ordered it from a bookstore, and
That's
that's what led me to that. But it is so many of us are pretty young. I was 25 when I got diagnosed, and it's a real youth ruiner. And
Yeah, I can remember the nurse saying, "You're so young, you shouldn't be diagnosed with this." And
uh,
yet, and this was in Massachusetts. I think I was at Mass General, like one of the big Boston well-known hospitals. Um, so that was really surprising that she was like, "You're so young, you shouldn't be diagnosed with it."
that's what my doctor said too. And I was in Seattle, which is also a big medical
Yeah,
area, and yeah, he's just like, "Oh, you're so young." It was before Crohn's, though. It was before he was just like he didn't know what it was. He's like, "You're so young for this." But once I started researching Crohn's, I was like, "If you're a GI doctor, you should have known. You should have recognized these symptoms, and not put me off for so long." It's just saying you're too young. You must be. He told me I was eating wrong, and
yeah.
so
I didn't talk about this, and I won't spend a lot of time, but we definitely had several months where I started, getting sick, and we didn't know what it was, and I was trying to avoid milk and lactose and cheese and
yeah.
did lactate pills. And, eventually through all of that trial and error, we realized this is more serious. Go see a gastroenterologist.
So you were on SCD, and how long was it before decided to go further? Get interested in making a documentary and get involved in that way.
So just to make sure I heard you right, you asked how long before I decided to like, make the documentary and what happened.
Yeah, like how long were you doing SCD before you wanted to? I did it for a long time too before I decided to kind of go public with wanting to help.
Yeah, I think the first time I really went public with my story was when I started making the documentary. So that was in April of 2010. I was laid off from work. I had money saved up, and in the back of my mind, I always thought it was just like really amazing and miraculous, the healing that I had. I didn't consider myself to be cured, but I wasn't in pain all the time. I wasn't, let's see, I mean, it's been a long time. It was a long time ago, and I'm trying to think. At least as far as like, the diarrhea and bowel movements, like that was gone. And I felt so much better. And I always thought that was an amazing story, and other people needed to know about it. So then, I was laid off from work, had money saved up, and I was like, it'd be really cool to make a documentary, really, really good and valuable and a rewarding experience to make a documentary. And so I knew I had to do it right then and there. So April 2010, around that time, I made a Kickstarter project, and I was able to raise some startup funding to make the documentary. And that's when I really started to, share my story. And I really, from the get-go, I knew I wanted this to be a patient-focused documentary film to tell the stories of people rather than primarily talking to doctors and medical experts. Because the reason I wanted to make the film was I was kind of naive, and I thought I could change the healthcare industry. And I wanted to see a healthcare industry that told patients more about the value that diets have and like how helpful diets can be in treating a disease, or a condition. So that was my goal with the documentary. And I knew I wasn't going to get that kind of information and stories by talking to medical doctors who didn't, at the time, really did not believe in diet to treat IBD. So that was the inspiration. That was how it all started.
So, in the documentary, you're talking to people who follow different, GAPS diets. And what are your thoughts on, are you more on the page of what diet works for you? Is be a proponent of rather than just one diet, SCD diet. We're both SCD, but I'm also like, okay, let's figure out what works for you type of person. And
I feel like my views on this change and evolve every so often.
yeah.
Not every day, but years ago, I was absolutely like, SCD is the only diet out there, and it's the correct diet. But now I am a lot more nuanced in that I do see that other diets like GAPS are just as valuable. Other, maybe not necessarily diets, but philosophies like Weston A. Price Foundation of, you know, nutrient dense, wild raised food, organic food is really valuable. Paleo also has the Autoimmune Protocol. And so I'm a lot more open to the idea that there is a variety of diets that I call therapeutic diets.
Mhm.
And they do have a common thread throughout all of them. And that whether they say it or not, what they all seem to try to do is to heal the gut and the microbiome and really try to treat disease from the gut. And, there's the famous quote that all diseases begin in the gut. That may not be 100% true, but today, with autoimmune diseases being so plentiful and the different types that there are, most of them do start in the gut, and the diets that tend to do the best have some sort of mechanism or philosophy in terms of like, how do we really help the gut repair and do
Mhm.
better and improve the gut microbiome?
Right.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of my philosophy is I I look for diets that really treat the gut. And within those frameworks, absolutely people should customize. If you're on, like for me personally, I love different varieties of tree nuts, like pecans and walnuts and cashews, but I really should not have like as much of those that I do. So for me, I need to customize. Within the framework of SCD, I shouldn't be having nuts. So, within a framework like that, definitely people need to customize what works for them.
Mhm. Before we move on to your newest endeavor, what do you think you like learned most by making the documentary?
What did I learn the most? Probably, hmm. I mean, I thought about this before. Like the one thing that really struck me, um, was just how welcoming and connected the people were. Like because we have this shared experience, you and I. We've gone through hell, so to speak, with all of the inflammation happening inside of our guts. Like we have that shared experience. And it was just the people were so generous and so vulnerable with their time. And it was such a rewarding and connecting kind of experience. That was really eye opening to me,
Mhm.
uh, was just the human connection that was found through something that's really not not a pleasant experience. So it was really rewarding in that sense. As far as like health and gut related, was just how comprehensive, holistic these healing journeys can be. I had people talk to me about the mind body connection and getting into meditation and yoga. And that was really eye opening to me in terms of like, these diseases are so complex that you really need to use every tool available to you. It's not just food, it's also getting proper sleep and exercise. So, yeah, that was really eye opening from a health perspective.
Yeah, for me too. I mean, definitely, as I've been studying the holistic approach, understanding stress and sleep and exercise and treating your body nicely. And it's not just the food. And that it, for me, made a huge difference in not only how I felt physically, but mentally about it. Taking in stress and, exercise or movement and everything, sleep, like you said, everything that I used to just be like, it's just all about the diet. So now you're working on a new project, an app which I've looked at and called Meadow Mentor, and it helps us know what's part of the diet, and that's why I was also asking because I know you have GAPS, SCD Diet, and the I think those are the two that are active right now.
Yeah,
Um,
and the Paleo Autoimmune Protocol.
and the Autoimmune Protocol. I've spent most of the time looking at SCD that I've been using it, but it allows you to ask questions and also look up and plan meals and look up if foods are legal. So how did you go about getting this put together?
Yeah, fun story. I was transitioning my career. I'm in Los Angeles, and I used to work in the film and television industry, and I wanted to transition my career. So I've always wanted to learn programming. I'm very technically minded, but I never learned programming specifically. So I was doing a tutorial lesson, and this used an AI large language model system, otherwise known as a chatbot, from Claude. And
Yeah.
Claude is really popular if you're really, into this new world of AI tech. So I was using Claude, and the tutorial taught me how to make a very simple more or less just a web page, not a fully functioning app, but a web page where you could type in ingredients that you had, and it would come up with a recipe. And immediately, upon seeing the tutorial and going through it, I said, you know what, this could be really valuable for people on the specific carbohydrate diet who don't really know which ingredients are allowed and not allowed. And so from there, that was last middle December of 2024. And then up until now, I've just been building this out and making more features that are primarily AI powered, but now I'm starting to work on other features that might use it a little bit, but it's not the core reason to use the feature. So yeah, that was the inspiration, and so I knew it would be extremely valuable for people.
So what are your plans for this as you move forward this app and project?
Right, yeah. So I was working on it this morning. So I have a new feature coming online where you're able to choose a different conversational style. So right now, when you use the app, it's very empathetic, very supportive and friendly, but it also tends to be a bit wordy, and maybe people don't want to read all that text. But if you're new to the diet and you have a lot of concerns, I think the friendly conversational style is really good. But some other ones that I have are minimal, so it gives the most important information. It tries to do it as succinctly and quickly as possible. And then another one that I think is more kind of fun, but I'm enjoying it personally. It's probably going to be the one that I use the most. I'm calling it an echo punk conversational style. And so the app is called Meadow Mentor. And the reason it's called Meadow, the reason I'm using that is because our guts are very much like the natural environment ecology of a meadow. And so if we take care of our bodies and our guts by feeding it proper nutrition and probiotics and removing things that inflame our guts, that process of like actually creating intestinal permeability and leaky gut is very similar to what happens in the natural environment when the soil is not giving the nutrients that it needs, and the grass starts to wither and die and the soil starts to crack. Um, so the echo punk conversational style weaves in these environmental um, protection and conservation kind of ideas and really connects it to what we're trying to do with our guts and improve the ecology of our guts. So that's one feature. And then the other one that's really big that I'm working on right now is a food journal, because that's very important to be able to track, um,
Mm.
what you're doing on the diet, what you're eating, how you're feeling. And so I'm going to create a food journal that tracks and also shows you your progress on the therapeutic diet.
So this is an AI powered app. Is it learning with the person or is it learning from what you're teaching it? Or both?
Right. I mean, currently, right now, the way it's programmed, I am putting a lot of my own personal knowledge into it. So, for example, there's a 7-day meal planner feature. And so you get a big dialog box of different options. Which meals do you want? Do you like to cook? Do you like to bake? Do you like to do fermented foods? And so once you set all of those things, it creates a comprehensive 7-day meal plan for you. It also uses if you enter in your sex, male or female, your weight, and also your activity level, it will calculate the number of calories that each meal should be, or rather, how many calories you need per day. So it's a combination of user data and also information that I've given it. Because I've instructed the AI to help people manage their time better and their energy. Because I know when people are sick, you don't have time, you don't have energy. So the AI, based on my input, my instruction, will offer, batch cooking and frozen foods as ways to save time and energy. So it's a combination of my information and people's information. And then also these AI models are getting smarter and smarter every few months because they're being trained on more and more data. So it also uses that as well.
How do you think the app is good for kind of all levels, beginners, people just starting out to people like us who have been doing this for a long time?
I do think it's good for both people. But for veterans, maybe it's a little bit different. For people that are beginners, I think it's excellent because they have a lot of questions. It might be 2 in the morning and you have a question, but nobody's really around or awake to answer that question. Well, you can go to Meadow Mentor and the AI is available 24/7. You can also ask any kind of question you want, even questions that you might be a little bit embarrassed to share with someone else. Um, so it's really, and I think it just really helps to give confidence and help people feel more safe by using something like this that's it's got your back. It's checking to make sure that everything is safe for you. Another feature is you can take a photo of a list of ingredients on a food label package. And actually, a funny story is, you know, up. So yes, I've been on SCD, but over the years, I've gravitated towards other diets. And then once you become a veteran, for me, I'm not going to speak for you, Sherry, but for me, I got complacent and I started, adding in foods that technically were not allowed on SCD or even GAPS. And my health was so good that I wasn't feeling the pain. I wasn't, my bowel health was still fine. But little by little, damage was being done. And so months went on when I'm not eating the way that I should. And it caught up to me. And my bowel health decreased, wasn't that great. And so I think something like this can be really good for veterans to just as an accountability buddy, so to speak. Um, because you do get comfortable and then you kind of forget some of the rules and restrictions that a therapeutic diet might have.
Yes, I agree. I certainly have been there, and having an accountability guide helps because even though I do eat a few foods outside of SCD, they probably would fit it into gaps pretty much. But yeah, I kept myself on track with just those. And those foods gave me what I needed, both health wise and enjoyment wise. And I stopped having that need to go way out to go way out there once I figured those things out. But definitely having somewhere where you could say, um, this is where I am. I'm not going outside of this. Would help. And I think asking those questions, like using the app, I asked like, how long should I do SCD, and it gave me a very, like you said, a very detailed answer. And ask. I think I asked it a couple other kind of random questions, but then putting in like, is this legal? And it's very, very helpful, especially for people. I know a lot. That's the biggest questions I see from people starting out is like taking that picture and posting it online. Is this legal? And getting a bunch. The funny thing is on Facebook groups, you're gonna get. I saw somebody post something that is like you just gotten like 20 different answers about about this thing. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm really curious about your experiences. You just mentioned that you've used it a little bit. Um, and I'm open to any feedback. If someone watching this right now, if you try it, please, at the end of this interview, I'll share my contact information. Let me know how it's working, both the good and the bad. So I'm really curious to hear from you, Sherry. What has your experience been like, both the good and the bad?
yeah, I will definitely. I'm gonna use it some more here, and I haven't tried taking the picture thing, so I'm gonna go. I'm gonna open it up when I go to the store and try that out. Because mostly I don't, I don't even really think about it anymore because I don't buy too many. The things I buy I've known for a long time, but I'd be curious just to look at something and try that out. So where can people find if they want to contact you and find this app?
Yeah, well, the app is available at meadowmentor.com, and I've designed it so that there's nothing to download. If you have a device that can connect to the internet, cell phone, iPad, laptop, computer, anything, you can use the app, and you can get started for free. It doesn't cost anything to create an account and start using it, but there are certain features that are premium and that you do need to have a paid subscription to access. So meadowmentor.com, and then you can contact me at meadowmentor@gmail.com.
And so to close it out, let's do a little fun thing. What's your favorite gut friendly meal?
Yeah, these days, right now, it would be ground beef. I like using grass-fed. I seem to just tolerate that a lot better. Grass-fed ground beef. I'll cook it in a pan and just, break it up into little bite-sized pieces. And then I chop up some ginger and I sprinkle that in. And then I get frozen vegetables from Costco almost every weekend. So I'll make a big pot of that and I just add that to my bowl of beef, ginger, and then I've also been getting bone broth, also from Costco. They should sponsor me, but
Yeah.
they have this turmeric ginger bone broth, which is just excellent. And so I will add all of that into a bowl, and that's my favorite gut healing meal.
So I have not seen that bone broth, so I'm gonna have to look that look that up. But I just made some, so I've got some on hand. All right, Reid. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I will put the links down below in the description for your app, and I'll put on YouTube the link to the documentary because that is available on YouTube.
Yes, yes, it is. Yeah, it's free. The documentary is free. Yeah, thank you so much. And, I do hope you and we can chat some more. I didn't get to mention this, but I do hope the app is useful for health coaches, people such as yourself. I don't want the app to be a replacement for human connection. This app is for people to use as a complementary tool to also, with your professional healthcare team, and that clearly includes health coaches. So we'd love to talk with you afterwards about, you know, how this app can be of service to you.
Human interaction is important, but also those immediate needs, especially, like you said, 2 in the morning, you have a question. You're at the store and you have a question, which I see all the time. I see some people are like, please answer, I'm at the store, and they might not get the answer. So having an app to help, AI is a very useful tool in that realm, but obviously you also want that human connection, which is why we're here doing what we do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.